All right. Good morning, gamers, and welcome to episode 29 of Games with Dave. This morning, I have the pleasure of being joined by the founders of Spilled Coffee Creatives, Nell Quinn-Gibney and Ali Mark.
Hello,
Nell,
hello.
Nell and Ali are running a really cool Kickstarter for a Powered by the Apocalypse game they've created called Beneath Hallowed Halls, a social deception game. I think I've got that right. And thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
You're so welcome. How did you two connect and form Spilled Coffee Creatives?
So we met in college, like way back, it was like 10 years ago at this point, freshman year of college, is when we met. And kind of as we went through college and we would talk about like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And like, what path do you think you're taking? The more and more we talk, the more we're like, oh, that's what I want to do. Wait a minute, like that makes sense to me too. And so just kind of slowly over the years, we've started working on projects together. We do, murder mysteries and LARPs and games and things. And we've done little projects for friends and things. And then the past like year or so, I would say we kind of sat down and went, hey, we should actually like do something with this and like actually make a branded name for ourselves and really start doing these games because we really want to.
Our backgrounds are actually both in theater. Ali is a scenic designer and a props designer primarily, although she also does acting. I am an actor. I do some playwriting and directing. And for a long time, that was the main goal. And we still both love theater and are involved in theater, but our our career focus has shifted. But I do think we both bring an element of theatricality to everything we do. And I think that theatrical background, which is also really how we came to be friends, was doing shows together, really grounds a lot of our work and has a lot of our history.
Awesome. So, what got the two of you into role playing games? Was it through theater or was it just something that happened?
So the first time we played a role-playing game was freshman year of college, unrelated to theater. Just a friend was like, hey, I love D&D. I want to run a game for you guys. Give it a try. And so the two of us and some of our friends started playing. We all enjoyed it, but as many campaigns do, it was doomed to college schedules and crazy busyness. And so we played for a couple of months and then kind of fell apart and didn't really touch role-playing games again for a couple years until actually coincidentally through immersive theater out in DC. I was working with a company and I connected with some friends who were really into not so much D&D but a lot more indie role-playing game systems, and started dragging me out to game nights. And I went, well, I'm now a missionary. I must spread the word to everyone I know about how great this hobby is.
That's awesome. So I had read in the Kickstarter, this is your first project to be published in physical form, and you already kind of touched on it. Can you tell me some of the other projects that you've worked on?
Yeah. Like I was saying, we've done a couple of murder mysteries, both for friends, or we actually do we're with a group called Quelmar, and we do a little gaming weekend every year. And so we've written murder mysteries as like the opening event for those gaming weekends and things. And then we also do some work with Patrick Adventures, which is a team building company. It's for corporate groups to come in and kind of have some fun together. So we do virtual escape rooms and murder mysteries and things like that. So we've done some virtual escape room writing for them and then also murder mystery writing for them. So we've got a couple of murder mysteries under our belt for sure. And then we also have written a fairy LARP, where basically it's a group of six of you goes into the world of Fae, and you find out that this doll has been brought to life and is trapped there, and you have until the sun sets to get what she needs to be able to go home to the little girl that left her in Fae. So it's like a series of challenges and activities, and there's little snacks and stuff. So
The
yeah,
snacks
those
are the
are
selling point, definitely.
absolutely gotta have snacks in your game. Very important.
Yes, that sounds really cool. Wish I were closer and could check it out. That sounds like a lot of fun. Um, so to get into Beneath Hallowed Halls, Could you give me a brief synopsis of the game without giving away too much?
Yeah. So our elevator pitch, essentially, it's a social deception role-playing game. It's written in the Powered by the Apocalypse system, by Vincent and Maggie Baker, with certain PvP elements adapted from Paranoia and other systems. You all players take on the roles of students at an elite, prestigious university. You all are the best of the best at this school. You like to wander around campus, visit coffee shops, ramble about your obscure, esoteric, intellectual passions. But one of you is also a murderer, uh, and has killed one of your friends. You all don't know who the murderer is, except for the murderer themselves. Someone is getting arrested at the end of the semester, and the game explores the bonds of friendship between the players and what might push someone to a breaking point, and explore what you'll do to avoid going down for a crime you may or may not have committed.
Nice. Without, if it won't spoil anything, how is the murderer determined? Is it prior to obviously prior to the game? And
Yeah.
how is that done?
So we actually it's randomly generated at the beginning. So there's two different ways you can start the game. We have a session 0 where everyone can go through and develop the relationships between each other and develop some happy memories and some sad memories that the group has to really flesh out the background of the group. Or we also will be providing a quick start, which will have all of that done for you that you can just send to your players if you don't have time for a session 0. But at the end of all of that world building, the DM rolls on a random number generator in order to determine who the murderer is. And then we have a setup for you so that the DM can actually go in and write the murder, with like the murder weapon and the location and things like that. And then they can send that off to the murderer so the murderer knows what they've done.
And key in the session 0, everyone has a motive, and all these motives are true. Everyone had a reason to want this person dead. It's just that one person happens to have acted on it.
So interesting sounding. Um, how does character creation work with Beneath Hallowed Halls? I'm like I
Yeah.
told you before we got talking, I'm not all that familiar with the Powered by the Apocalypse engine.
Yeah, so PBTA, we've adopted a lot of different aspects, elements of PBTA, one of which are the playbooks. We have 6 different playbook. Each playbook represents a kind of character archetype that's common in these stories. So the playbooks we have are the loose cannon, someone who's given to vice and self-destruction, and is usually the life of the party. The seductress, someone who knows how to use their body, their charm, their personality to get what they want. The sweetheart, likable, trustworthy, probably, naive, devoted to their friends. The intellectual, often kind of the leader of the group. Everyone in this game is intellectual and devoted to their craft, but the intellectual takes it to another step. The artist, who's actually more creatively minded than intellectually minded. And the newcomer, who is a bit of an outsider, someone who's new to the group, new to the school, who's still trying to belong to this family. So players choose from those 6 playbooks, and then either, if they've picked a quick start, they already have had a name, a look, basic relationships assigned to the other characters, they can flesh those out. Or you go through a session 0 where you work with the other players and with the DM to develop your backstory, your secrets, how you feel about the other characters. Our game only has 3 stats, we think. That's changing. It was 4, down to 3, who knows? But it only has 3 stats. There's a pool of basic moves everyone has access to, and then each playbook has a series of specific moves only that individual player has.
Very interesting. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm gonna have to, as soon as we get off of here, I've got to make sure I back this project. And this sounds so much fun.
Thank you.
Another thing I'd read that we haven't quite touched on yet is that you're introducing some new mechanic. What can you tell me about those?
Yeah. So the two big things that our game has that other PPTA games don't necessarily have is we have a loyalty tracker and a suspicion tracker. So the loyalty tracker is something that you as a player keep track of. And basically, as you go throughout the game, you can adjust how loyal you're feeling to the group. And if you hit either extreme of that tracker, you'll get a bonus move where either you're totally committed to the group and totally loyal and will do anything for them, or you're broken, you've seen the light, this group is terrible, and you're out for yourself or just for one or two people. So you get to secretly track that throughout the game so that no one else in the group knows how loyal you're particularly feeling in the moment. But it also
Unless
gives
they
you
have a move that lets them see.
exactly. And it kind of lets you track where your character is at mentally. And then we have the suspicion tracker, which is something that the GM will keep track of. And basically, this is how suspicious is your character, both to the authorities and to your other classmates and your professors. And that is basically what gauges who is going to be arrested at the end of the game. So you want to try to make sure that you can find out information, but you aren't too suspicious as you try to do it, or you could be the one that goes down for the crime. Or maybe you want to be suspicious because you want to throw yourself under the bus, but that's just kind of the way that you can tell where you're at. And that's something that's also secret. And so the players never quite know how suspicious they are to the outside world.
Unless you have a move that lets you look at it.
So cool sounding. What are... Sorry, I just had a complete brain fart there. Oh,
No worries.
you had mentioned playtesting when we were speaking before we came on. What has been some of the feedback you've gotten from that, and how have you incorporated it into the game thus far?
Yeah.
I think that made sense.
Absolutely. We've run a couple of playtests, both incorporating the full session 0 where everyone works together to develop a story, and starting with a quick start, adapting the characters and fleshing them out a bit from what's been pre-written. Playtesting is, in my opinion, both the most stressful and the most fun part of writing a game. I mean, you can put as much as you want on paper, you can think in your head and talk about it as much as you want, but you never really know how something is going to go until a player is doing it. So it's always a really nerve-wracking time. I have had a ton of fun with these playtests. We've got some great quotes. For example, how will the murder affect our lesson plans? One of my favorite things that was said in our very first session. And just getting to watch what works and what happens when a game comes to life and a mechanic works well and a player is so torn over what to do, and they sit there deliberating, trying to decide which of their friends to throw under the bus, and the kind of magical moments of, oh man, I wrote that and it happened. But certainly also you always find out the things that don't work the way you want them to. And I would say the overall thing that we are taking away from feedback and taking away from playtests and making changes towards is more stress, more tension, make the choices harder, make everything harder, add more cruel things to do to the players, make them make more decisions, make the police poke around in their business more. Yeah, it's a hard rule, at least for me, to remember. I always want to go easy on the player and want the player to have fun and have a nice time, and sometimes that's just not the game you're writing. And that's most of the players have said punish us more, so that's what we're working on.
That's fantastic.
Being crueler gods.
So another thing that I wasn't familiar with is you have classified this as a dark academia game. I have never heard that genre before, so could you explain that to me?
Yeah. This is gonna sound a little bit like a cop-out answer, but it's almost more of a vibe than like a very like specific definition.
Gotcha.
But it is very much it's usually a very tight-knit group of students who are kind of living in this prestigious bubble where they kind of view the world as you make art and philosophy because those are the meaningful things in the world, and we're above the rest of our classmates because we've been enlightened and we can see this. And it's almost cult-like in a way, which is a little creepy. But it's usually at a university, where they're all specifically studying something, and everything is kind of seen with this wine haze, rose-colored glasses. And then often there is a inciting incident, like a murder, where something goes wrong because of this bubble that these people were living in, and something got taken too far, and now reality crashes in and they have to deal with that.
Very neat. What were some of your inspirations that you drew from to build this? I guess,
Yeah,
yeah.
so we're both huge fans of murder mysteries, of thrillers, of dark academia in general. So there are a couple of books, in particular, If We Are Villains, The Likeness, and The Secret Place by Tana French are some of our favorite books. We've loved them since college. We've spent hours discussing and rereading the mysteries. How to Get Away with Murder, the TV show, Pretty Little Liars, anything really that kind of captures a really tight friendship that gets shattered by the world. Yeah, those we've got a couple of different inspirations listed on our Kickstarter page. We'll include some suggested reading in the book. But yeah.
Now, How to Get Away with Murder, is that the one with the law student?
Yes.
Yes,
Sure is.
I've watched that one before. Um, what are some of the stretch goals? I know you have passed at least one. What are some of the other stretch goals that you have lined?
So we only had one. This is our first Kickstarter. It's our first published book, and it was really important to us that the quality is as good as we can make it. You only get one first impression. And so it was more important to us to do a lot of editing and polishing what we have instead of trying to add more new content. So our only stretch goal that we smashed through is for extra quick starts. There's going to be one included in the book. We're going to include a PDF for all backers with 3 other kickstarts, so that anyone who doesn't have time to play a 3-hour session 0, although it's very fun session 0, I promise, can still pick up the game and play it.
Awesome. You have any, I guess I would say, expansions planned for the game in the future, or what's next after this? Have you thought that far ahead yet?
Ali, you want to tackle it?
So we don't have any expansions planned at the moment. I think there's certainly a possibility where down the line we release more quick starts, or we come up with more playbooks and release those. We don't have anything planned about that particularly right now, but that's certainly something I could see happening in the future. Yeah, and our next project we're working on is we're working actually for a different company, but we're working with that company to create one of those murder mysteries in a box about the Satanic Panic. So we're pretty excited about that.
Oh, nice.
We're also working on an espionage spy LARP, 40 people plus player versus player, to run as an opening event at a gaming convention that we're involved with.
Nice.
So we've got a couple of big projects to tackle, and then hopefully we'll be back working on another TTRPG.
Very cool. Well, I feel like I blew through all of my questions really fast. Is there anything
we talk really fast?
Well, I do too, and
we're speed talkers.
Is there anything that you feel like we didn't cover that you would like to discuss? Or
I just want to shout out, in addition to Apocalypse World, we were very inspired by the game Paranoia. I always love I like shouting out the games. There's not much original art. I'm a big fan of shouting out influences and creators. Paranoia has some of the most brilliant PvP mechanics, so we We're certainly inspired by that game as well. Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to make sure all of our inspirations got a shout out.
Awesome. And did you have anything else you wanted to add, Allie? Or
I don't think so. Thank you so much. Your questions were very all encompassing. So
well, thank
I
you very
applaud you.
much. Well, that was all I had. Thank you very much for joining me today. And folks, if you'd like to back this totally awesome Kickstarter, there is a link down below in the description. And get over and back this project. It's got what, 61 hours left, you said, to get?
I think
60.
now.
We've clocked over.
Nice. Yeah, and if you enjoyed this interview, please give it a like and maybe subscribe to the channel.